The year is 2019. On TV and among so many people who have gone to my high school, I've observed involvement in so many feminism and anti-racism rallies. In the United States, these rallies show that we have started to recognize to different areas of discrimination, a terrible issue. However, being problems that have been so deeply rooted in global society and culture for centuries, discrimination is very much prominent in many places. It has not yet received the awareness that it needs in order to be combated. My name's Ivani. I am the daughter of 2 immigrants. I am a woman of color. I grew up in a fairly privileged background with access to several items. Many people don't have access to these opportunities, let alone clean water. So far, I have been lucky to never face discrimination of any sorts, and hence I was honestly uneducated of the true experience of someone who has faced such. It wasn't until I read the book called The Woman Warrior, Memoirs of a Girlhood Among Ghosts, and I could truly understand through the experiences and stories of Maxine Hong Kingston, a first-generation American-born citizen. Kingston writes in detail about different racist and sexist scenarios. It touches on several topics: the extreme favoring of boys over girls in China, and the major difficulties and discrimination immigrants face coming into the U.S. In the book, she has several encounters with her mother, who often drops sexist comments. Now, this was not the first time I'd heard of drastic gender discrimination, specifically in China. During the time when the one-child policy in China was implemented, some women would abandon their female babies in alleys or parks. In an article from The Guardian, I came to learn that several women had illegal selective sex abortions just because they wanted a baby girl. I was really curious to look into why and how this sexist thinking originated. I learned that in the past, it was Chinese custom to marry off their daughters to men for a large sum of money, and the daughters would no longer be a part of her original family. Boys would be there to provide strength, labor, and longevity, to care for their parents at old age, as they would stay in the family. This, combined with sexism that has been around since the agricultural revolution, leads to Chinese society having little to no value for women. The effect that this has had on current-day Chinese society is a large gender gap in population, with an increased bachelor population and increased crime and sexual harassment. Here, I'll provide an example of how women were treated. In the past century, Chinese males were the only ones to immigrate into the United States, leaving Chinese women waiting to bring their families to the new country as well. However, many of these men started new lives and families with white women and forgot about their wives in China, as if these women meant nothing to them. In the popular Disney movie Mulan, the government bans women from joining the military, with the punishment being death. Sexism wasn't the only issue that was brought to my attention when reading The Woman Warrior. Reading about the different immigration experiences author Kingston's family members went through when immigrating to the United States encouraged me to search for various ways how Chinese immigrants face discrimination in the U.S. The Charles B. Wang Community Health Center compiled a list of accounts to reflect the experience of being an immigrant in America. One discusses how grandfathers were able to immigrate to the U.S., while grandmothers had to stay in China until sexist discriminatory rules were loosened. One discusses a mother who, while getting a doctorate degree in China, was simply placed into a factory job upon immigration to the United States. Now, let's talk about current-day discrimination issues, because all of that was in the past. There is a huge disparity between what men and women currently make, as well as between what white employees make and what employees of color make. In several countries around the world, women aren't granted basic education, the right to drive, and more. Xenophobia has risen, especially in the United States, with light being shined on illegal immigration. These are just some of many more issues revolving specifically racism and sexism. So, how can we make a change? So much has been done since the 70s, which was when Maxine Kingston published her book. However, the progress that has been made is not substantial. Just as all the rallies in the past, all the other TED Talks regarding this issue, I am speaking about this issue to draw awareness. We are all trying to appeal to the guilt conscience of all the racist, sexist, homophobic, and xenophobic people out there. In countries where sexism has been deeply intertwined with tradition, plain awareness isn't going to help. Ideologies that have been around for centuries aren't going to disappear. In the past, the utilization of media has been advantageous, but not nearly to the point where discrimination is not a huge issue anymore. My idea is to start with the young. Older generations will be more likely to stick with traditional discriminatory ideals. This is especially necessary for third world countries who are sometimes off the grid and haven't yet adopted some of the movements, such as Black Lives Matter, the Time's Up movement, and Women's March. As a society, we should continue creating platforms that can encourage anyone to prosper, regardless of their gender or the color of their skin.